Well, it looks like an old friend's trying to come back. And is it going to succeed or is it going to flop like the rest of the company? Gamestop is trying to start up a retro store. I don't know in particular what that means. Are they going to make a whole new building or have some of the current buildings be exclusively retro or have more retro games than current games? So, reports have been coming out that GameStop has the idea of bringing in a retro store for a while now. And I know from times I went to the stores before the whole issue I had that I mentioned about a month ago, they were testing out retro games and seeing if people would purchase them. And I guess it was successful enough to where they are now on the verge of having a retro store be a part of the GameStop family. And it has a good setup, at least. I will give it that. As we go to the GameStop website here, this copy of Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness that could easily go for $200, they're selling for about half, which is interesting if they can do this correctly. Now, not all GameStop locations are going to have the retro option there. Like, they might have a few retro games, but it's not going to be a GameStop retro store. Luckily for me, there's one a little less than 20 miles away from me, so I'll take a look at that on Sunday, and I'll let you guys know on how that is. It's just quite interesting to see. Yep, that's current stuff. It's just interesting to see the retro game world go like this. And like I said in the beginning, this could mean a whole lot for many retro stores, because it seems to me that GameStop is trying to bring in retro fans by mentioning, hey, we're going to be selling retro games. Not only that, but it's even they're competing with mom and pop shops for the price of these games. Not all of them, but definitely most of them. Now, I can see this being a success if GameStop doesn't act like GameStop. What do I mean by that? Well, I went ahead and started looking at some of these more deeper, and there were a few situations where I would see a very bad rating from shoppers from years ago that bought these games and had said, like, for example, for a Pokemon Crystal game, the batteries weren't replaced. It was very crusty. It wasn't saving profiles, which again led to battery issues. If GameStop can not only show their employees how to fix these games, then maybe it can work out. It seems like a big risk or a big ask, because GameStop is very, very stingy when it comes to many things, hence why so many people were giving them problems. But if they do this correctly, they can succeed. Now, not every game is going to be very easy to get. As you saw, like, there are some games that are like $10, like this copy of Ken Griffey Jr. Slugfest. And then you're going to have things that are going to cost you way more. Like there was one game that we passed that I want to show off. The $60 game of Earthworm Jim. $65 for the copy of Earthworm Jim. So it's definitely going to be comparing prices depending on how popular the game is. But if they can do this correctly, they're going to be doing this to where their games are going to be cheaper to get than if you go to a local store. Now, I don't think this will completely shut down mom and pop shops or make games cheaper. It could, yes, make them cheaper. Again, if they can do this correctly. So if I want to go in and I get a copy of Ocarina of Time, for example, I want to make sure that it can play. So I'm sure you're going to have a lot of people that are going to verify if they can play or not. I'm sure you're going to have people bringing in their games to see if they can be tested or have a way to test the games to make sure they are working. And I hope GameStop will actually do this and say, you know what, we will test these games out. We will make sure that you go home with a game that is playable. If they can do that as well, they're really going to knock it out of the park. So this is what I was mentioning earlier when it comes to the reviews. I just saw it a second ago. We're going to read some of these reviews. And then there's some people that are saying it came with a dead battery. Someone received a fake, which is not looking good. And I got no save. It doesn't work. And apparently they couldn't even return it. So it's definitely something that they're going to have to look at. Now, granted, this was years ago, or even the closest was 7 months ago, when they were trying to do the early parts of trying to set up retro games. But if they can do this correctly, which honestly I don't think they can, because it's GameStop at the end of the day. But if they really want to tell mom and pop shops, we are about to take over the retro gaming world, they need to come prepared with not only making sure that the games are good, but also the systems are good, make sure all the accessories are good, make sure everything's working, good to go. If they really want to go out of the park on this, I can also see them doing modded systems to a point. Like, I'm not going to say they're going to do modded 3DSs with every single game attached to it, but probably like Game Boy or Game Boy Advance games, or the systems I should say, that have a backlight. You know, they could probably do that. They could do a lot of other things as well. And it really comes down to, can they keep the promise of making you want to come back here? Because, like I said before, lately it just has not been that way, especially with the craziness that has occurred when it comes to pre-orders, and also came to when I tried to pick up my copy of the game that I pre-ordered and they weren't even there. So, GameStop, if you can pull this off correctly, you are going to make retro gaming very great again. But if you mess up, you're just going to come falling down faster than the fat chick going down the slide. But that's all I really want to talk about. I will be going to one of these on Sunday. Like I said, there's one in Delaware I'm going to go to. But I will go there. And depending on if it was a good experience or a bad experience, I'll let you guys know here, so that way you can save your time or I waste mine. All right, that's gonna be it for today. Later.